Defence Secretary Grant Shapps, thanks so much for joining us. Let's kick off with the thing that people will be actually worried about, their bills, how much money they've got in their pockets. The energy price cap coming down. A typical household's bill will fall by £122 a year from July. Obviously good news. But bills are still well above pre-pandemic levels, about £400 higher than 3 years ago. Do you expect the voters to thank you for a small fall?
Well, first of all, good to speak to you. Secondly, it's not the pandemic which led to these high bills. It was Putin invading Ukraine, and I'm afraid that is a war which is ongoing now into its third year. And I think Britain can be very proud of our part. Zelensky says to me regularly, we may not even be in this war if it wasn't for the United Kingdom's fantastic leadership in the world on this. It has, I'm afraid, not our involvement, I mean Putin's invasion, led to an energy crisis in the world, which has led to higher bills. It's very welcome that they've been falling, and there's this further fall today, which we're delighted about. But we can't change the facts on the ground. What we can do is try and ensure that Ukraine wins that war, and that means doing things like making defence, which is one of the reasons I'm so pleased that this government have committed to spending 2.5% of our GDP on defence, which is something Labour has not said they will do, or at least won't attach a timescale to, or how they'll pay for it. And as a result, when it comes to everything, including energy prices, in the longer run, we could be a lot worse off with Labour because they won't be helping to tackle Putin in quite such a determined way.
Okay, well, we'll get bogged down in what the Labour Party do. Let's concentrate on you. You've set out very well the reason the bills went up and drove up inflation to incredibly high levels because that fed through to everywhere else. If all of that was the fault of Putin, why should you get any credit for getting inflation down?
So inflation is a product of lots of different things, but it actually does also include the decisions you've made. So, there was a point where every single time that anybody in the public services asked for a pay rise, I seem to recall Labour saying, look, just give them whatever, give them any amount. And the problem with that approach, as we those who were alive will remember, those who listen in the 70s, that's exactly what happened. And it led to inflation just continuing in a spiral, pushed on by wage inflation to continue to stay high for very much longer. In this case, we've got inflation right down from over 11% to very near 2%. And that's because, for example, we've been prepared to take difficult decisions, not always popular decisions, but to be responsible with the public purse. And that is one of the reasons why I would suggest that inflation coming down is in part a credit to the way that the economy has been operated.
Isn't it actually down to the Bank of England keeping interest rates up, which is completely independent and has nothing to do with the government?
Well, it's obviously a combination of both. Okay. Interest rates are part of it.
So all the bad stuff, all the prices going up, inflation going up, that's all other things. But then you want a bit of the credit for the good bit.
Well, first of all, I don't think you can, not for one moment, the reason inflation spiked not just here but everywhere around the world was because of the energy crisis that Putin brought about by Ukraine. I don't think we're having a debate about that. I don't think anyone would doubt that. Secondly, you're right to say the Bank of England sets interest rates and where they're set has a big impact on inflation. But thirdly, it's also clear that a government can help to keep inflation much higher if it gives in to the demands for inflation busting pay rises. That is what Keir Starmer wanted us to do, it seems. We didn't do that. Not popular in the short term, difficult to do. But the benefit today is that is part of why inflation is lower. And I do think that actually Rishi Sunak, as both Chancellor and now as Prime Minister, takes some credit for that.
Can I ask, obviously halving inflation was one of Rishi Sunak's priorities, and that has happened for all the factors we've discussed. He also promised to grow the economy, and then we went into recession, and now we have come out of it. He promised to reduce debt, which hasn't been happening. He promised to cut waiting lists. They've gone up. And he's promised to stop the boats, and that hasn't happened. In his big relaunch of his party conference last year, he wanted to scrap A-levels. We've heard nothing more about that since. And then he wanted to ban smoking, create a smoke-free generation. He boasted about it on the steps of Number 10, while today that plan is being put in the bin. What was the point of Rishi Sunak's 18 months as Prime Minister?
I hope you won't mind me just, I think, correcting the record on some of those, or at least presenting the facts as they've actually come about. You and I agree on inflation. He's definitely reached that. Growing the economy, this last quarter, we had a growing economy at 0.6%, faster than America, faster than Germany, faster than
But
France or
having been in
Italy.
recession before,
It's true. We've gone through, not just COVID, but also war in Ukraine. And he came in and said, "Look, I'm going to turn that around." And I would argue, with growth faster than the United States and Germany, that he has met the growing the economy. We can have a further discussion. Debt was supposed to hit 100%. Actually, it's 94%. So he has actually undershot where the debt is going to be. NHS waiting lists have
he
been
hasn't.
falling. We've
No,
just
he
seen the
hasn't.
largest.
Grant, just on that, he hasn't reduced
Yeah.
debt. Debt is not as high as forecast, which is a different thing.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
fine.
And that was the pledge. The pledge was to reduce debt over the longer term. So actually, the fact it's not as high as forecast, I think, demonstrates we're on the right track.
Okay,
NHS waiting lists, of course, had it not been for strikes in the NHS, would have been much lower. But
okay,
even with them, we had recently experienced the biggest drop outside COVID that we've seen.
okay.
And as for stopping the boats, we have fought against Keir Starmer tooth and nail, both in the House of Commons and in House of Lords, where Labour had the sort of whip hand with their votes to get this through. And I just put it to you that we now have got that through, and it can happen in July. And the only thing now that stands in the way of that happening is Labour, who not only say they will stop the planes rather than stopping the boats, which to me is just crazy, but also say that they'll do a deal with Europe, which involves uh, bringing 100,000 more people here, which I think, again, is exactly against what we should be doing at this time.
If the prospect of being sent to Rwanda is such a deterrent, why is it that since Rishi Sunak introduced the emergency legislation before Christmas, we've seen a record number of people coming?
Probably people trying to get ahead of that. But
But
I think until you have it up and running,
sorry, Grant, that
the
doesn't make any
real
sense.
deterrent.
That doesn't make any sense. You announced you were going to send people to Rwanda, and ever since then, even more people have come. What, hoping they're going to be sent to Rwanda?
People hoping they can get to the country and get their cases cleared. Perhaps I think the principle should be really, really straightforward. If you come here illegally, you should not be able to stay. If you want to bust the criminal gang network, you've got to have something harder than anything that is here at the moment in terms of persuading people. And the flights taking off, I think, would be exactly that thing. So Dharma has been very clear. He says even if Rwanda works, he still won't do it.
Yeah.
Well, in which case he's just accepting we will have criminal gangs bringing people across the North Sea forevermore. I have not heard any other solution that we're not already doing posed by Starmer, and it's not just on Rwanda or illegal immigration. I've heard his plans in any area. He stood on the sidelines and sniped now for years on end. He's got no clear plan. He hasn't.
Okay, we're drifting into
He's
Keir
always taking
Starmer
the easy
again
way
rather
out.
than the Conservatives. Let me ask you,
Well, it is an election, in fairness. In
yes, no,
fairness.
no, I completely accept that. But saying he hasn't got a plan while your plan's not working is a circle we can keep going around in. Rishi Sunak was asked today about Boris Johnson and whether or not he might hit the campaign trail with him. He said he didn't rule it out. Any Conservative was welcome to come and join the campaign. Would you go out knocking on doors with Boris Johnson,
Absolutely.
even though you once had him airbrushed out of a photo?
Not deliberately and not by me. No, just to be clear, I supported Boris Johnson right to the end. I know he's not perfect. I think he did a lot of great stuff, including getting this country vaccinated before anyone else, getting ourselves out of lockdown first, and brilliant, brilliant in Ukraine. And actually, Rishi Sunak has taken that up and taken what we've done in Ukraine and put even more money into supporting existentially important for right here in Europe. And and I have to say, actually, Rishi has been brilliant on this, including the other week committing to 2.5% of GDP spent on defence, and that is why this country will be securer under the Conservatives, and I think it faces an uncertain future under Labour, not least because they won't commit to the 2.5% on defence.
What about Liz Truss? Would you campaign with her?
I don't think she's likely to be coming out campaigning. I don't know. Perhaps she is.
Well,
I will.
you
I mean,
could
exactly
pop
as,
down
as
to a constituency, make sure she gets re-elected.
look, I absolutely will campaign always with every Conservative. Every party is a broad church, as they say. The fundamentals that separate us from the actual choice here, which is Labour and Starmer, is that we've got clear plans. We're prepared to take the bold action, and we're prepared to do the things which give us security for the future. And I don't think Labour have any of those things, and any of my Conservative colleagues will back our approach. And I'm afraid Starmer, I just don't know what the guy stands for. He stands on the sidelines, snipes. He's going to need to do a lot of explaining this next few weeks.